HWA1C. At this time, please mute all mics during the duration of today's training. Should you have any questions, please either annotate in the chat or raise your virtual hand. Also, upon conclusion of today's training, please take some time to complete the training evaluation via the link annotated in the chat. I will also resend it at the conclusion of today's briefing as well. This trend is being recorded and will be available on the AFDW University. The link is in the chat also. At this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Hill. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. So yes, I'm going to be presenting information on DPMAP on evaluating performance this morning. Okay, let me see if I can get here to the next slide. Okay, so as we know, there are different times in DPMAP that we need to do performance feedbacks. One is at the beginning of the year, which should have been done by 30 April, because that is the beginning of the performance period. Then another time halfway through to evaluate the performance to see how the employee is doing. And that's coming up the end of October. And then, of course, we are in a outstanding, fully successful, or unacceptable pattern of rating. Okay. All right. So between April and now, we have been, as supervisors, monitoring the performance of the employees, looking at their performance plans, documenting anything in the My Performance tool during the performance cycle that you've noticed as a supervisor. The performance cycle, again, usually is from 1 October, anytime after 90 days on an improved performance plan. So if you've had an employee that just started in July or August, they will not be due until October, November, December timeframe, the 90 days. They have to be on the performance plan, assigned and approved performance plan for 90 days. And supervisors are not limited in the amount of discussions that you have. So after 30 days, if you have, or if you've noticed that something is just not working in the performance plan, or maybe that individual is not performing that duty, you can go ahead and have that discussion at any time. So you're not limited to the 3 times. Always the goal is to get your employees to understand what their performance goals are, and then discuss at any point during that time if there are some questionable things maybe that you've noticed or they've noticed, and then to sit down in that interactive process and also evaluate how you feel they're doing, and let them tell you that what they're doing as well. Okay. Okay. So basically, during the performance period, a narrative is not really performed during the progress review. It's a discussion. It's a meaningful discussion. And I say meaningful because what you're looking at, those organizational goals, are they maintaining them? Looking at all of the elements, do you see areas of possible improvement, or are they doing an outstanding job in there? What is your expectations? Is your employee meeting those expectations? Have they had some accomplishments and contributions to the work or to the mission? Are they performing at the appropriate level? And then again, what areas are needing to be improved or not? And what are some of the barriers to success? That's one of the things that if you're looking at your performance plan and your employee is not meeting something, say that, within 7 days of receiving this, you need to receive a response or you need to coordinate something. If there's a barrier saying, well, I've tried to get it done within that 7 days, but this and this and this and this have happened, and that's preventing them from getting that, that's when you reevaluate that performance plan and say, okay, well, so maybe 7 days isn't realistic. Maybe 10 days is more realistic. So that's what you're doing during this progress review period. Okay. And then always talk to your employee about what are their developmental needs? What are their career goals? Where do they want to go? Do they want to be in your position one day? So help them achieve those goals. Okay, so this is a good example of someone that is on track to be fully successful in their performance. So you'll talk about the feedback that you had, you'll discuss the goals and priorities and the performance elements. The employees on track to accomplish those things, and then discuss developmental needs, et cetera. So this is just kind of a good basis for you to use, or samples for you to use as you're doing those performance elements on how to actually write one. Okay. Any questions on that? No? Okay, I'll keep moving. Okay. We don't want this to ever happen, but sometimes we just have employees that need a little help. And early intervention is what you need to do. So if as a supervisor, if you see somebody maybe is declining in performance and again, anytime during the employee appraisal cycle, early intervention is definitely imperative. So what you need to do is determine before discussing, ask these questions to yourself. What aspects of the performance are unsatisfactory? Is it the entire element? Is it maybe parts of that? So make some notes on what things you're seeing that you feel is unsatisfactory. Then, does the employee understand their performance plan expectations? Sometimes when we're just giving them that plan and say, here, do you have any questions about it? They may not have gotten it and they don't understand everything in it. So it's good to sit down again and talk about, do you understand what your expectations are of your position? What obstacles are there? Are there obstacles for them to getting some of those expectations done? Like I've already previously given you an example of that, okay? And again, are there extenuating circumstances that are preventing you from becoming a fully successful in your performance? Whenever you have these type of things, make sure you contact the Employee Management Relations Office immediately because they can help you. And also we know as supervisors, we need to document, 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 correct? Okay. So when you are giving feedback to the employee, make sure you clearly explain the performance expectations and what you're not meeting. Describe the problems that you've seen and then give that, that interactive to be able to talk about what's going on. Provide some specific examples of what and how those things were not met. Explain what's needed to improve and examples of what that fully successful will look like. Offer appropriate informal assistance. Remember, this is not a performance improvement plan. This is just a discussion to get that employee to where they need to be in their performance. Talk about, is there some kind of assistance I can give you? Is there training I can offer you? I'm going to be watching, maybe helping you. If you come to something that you have a question on, come to me. I'll, show you the proper way of doing something. Might be the OJT, getting another employee in your office to make sure that that person understands it. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to be successful in their performance. Okay, so build on their strengths by explaining what they're currently doing right as well. So talk to them about, here's where some areas of improvement are. But then I like to always end my discussions with here's your strengths, so here's what you're doing well. Okay. All right. So this is an example of a negative trending performance, like kind of like a here's a strike one. Okay. This was a good example of how you would explain it in the element. Talk about the priority still. This is your feedback session. Then if you're not making any progress, describe the areas where there's been a decline in performance and what the standard is, and then how they did not meet that standard, and then remind them of their responsibility to do that. And then inform the employee that, we're going to have maybe frequent discussions, reporting, so that we can see that you're changing it from a negative to a positive. It's always a good thing when you can show that improvement, and I'm sure that your employee is going to want to see, show you that they're improving in those areas as well. Okay. So some tips and tricks for the My Performance tool. It's a paper copy, of course. You have to own it to edit it. So make sure that you're going in to get all of your employees' performance plans back so that you can do the progress review. The progress review is not complete until the employee acknowledges. So when we go through the process and you are going to write or have your employee write what they've done during this rating period, then you're going to talk about what you are evaluating them on, those samples I gave you, and then it will go to either the higher level rater, or it will go to the employee, depending on how it is in your organization. And the employee has to acknowledge it in order for it to be complete, okay? Make sure we're going through all of those steps. And then contact your employee relations specialist to help if you have any questions in that. I know some of you are not at AFDW. We've got Air Force in as well, but contact your local civilian personnel office. They can help you to get to the right person and be able to accomplish all those things that you need to do. One thing I like to stress and let everybody know that DC Pass has a DPMAP toolkit available to you. There's lots of files. There's also samples and videos of actually giving a performance feedback to an employee, all through the various stages of DPMAP. So if you ever need any assistance, you can't get hold of your EMR person, then go to DC Pass because they have some awesome videos there for you, okay? So before I get into actually looking at the My Performance tool, does anyone have any questions on the process or how it's going? You can come off mic if you need to.
Hello, Miss Hill. This is Rob Ada.
Hi.
Hi. And so the point of contact for the HR specialist, is there a list of names and numbers somewhere?
For your local HR specialist, your civilian personnel, because I know you're here in the building, is on the second floor on that end of the building, not the building, I know where you said, not on our side, but the other side on the second floor. The civilian personnel office is there, and I believe they do have a list of personnel outside their door that you can contact. If not, I do know that they do have an email box, so I'll be glad to share that. I can put that in the chat later. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime. Glad to help. Okay, so I do have a question in the chat. So I have an employee starting work during the pay period starting 21 October. Do I need to have an approved performance plan locked in for them by 31 October for this employee? Okay, so whenever you get a new employee, you have 30 days to get with them and get an approved performance plan. So if this person is starting 21 October, then you have till 21 November to get them on a approved performance plan, and then 90 days from that approved performance plan to give them a progress review. Understood? You are welcome. Okay, perfect.
Hi,
Anything else? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks. No, it's okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm from MRB and it's FMRB, and I wanted to ask if we have some unusual situations in our direct division. If you
Okay.
have people who've been on an extended detail and they've been working somewhere else for a lengthy period of time, well beyond this pay period. I mean, this performance period. But
Mm-hmm.
now you're coming up to the midterm appraisals and you're moving to back to where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
So the
Mm-hmm.
midterm appraisal should be about your performance where in what you've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
but then are you waiting until that is complete and then you change the performance plan so that it now matches what you were supposed to be doing originally?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense because I get this a lot. So yeah, we do have people that are temp promoted or they're detailed. And what's going to happen is they're going to have like a mix match on their appraisal. So remember the appraisal period is performance period on the approved performance plan is 90 days. So when they were detailed to that position, they should have been given a performance plan for the detailed position. If they were not, I'll get that in a minute. So performance plan, then they're evaluated by the person that they were detailed to. That person provides input to you as the supervisor. So when that person comes off the detail, you get that person back. You take that into account, the performance of work that they've been doing. Then you put them on their new performance plan and you rate them after the 90-day period. So not everyone will have an approved progress review by the end of October, but there's extenuating circumstances because of that. Either they've been temp promoted to another position, which that will be taken into account. Okay, so it's communication between the supervisors. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Okay.
And one follow on, and I could ask you this offline if I need to,
Sure.
but
That's fine.
say in the second half, you're going to be doing a civilian development program and out of your your thing completely. Is that at the end of that appraisal period? How does those up to 6 months, how does that work with an appraisal at that point, the final appraisal?
Okay, so they're going to be actually leaving to go to a civilian development program?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then you won't do one on that one. And yeah, we can talk offline because in some cases, there's individuals that won't be getting a mid-year feedback or an appraisal because of various programs. Say you have somebody that went in the reserves or the military. We've got some people that are gone this entire year. You don't put them on a performance plan because they're not here to be rated. Okay, so they'll come up on our list as not having one, and then you just explain to the civilian personnel office that, and hopefully they know already because they're on leave without pay, that that person won't be rated this year because they're on a military orders. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that is very interesting. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Right.
all right. And then let me just ask this too. What about if a performance plan and a position description don't align? Can you address that?
They don't align. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would think they should align. Is that correct?
They should align. So if that's the case, then I would suggest looking at that position description and making sure that those are the actual duties of that position, because that really is telling the Air Force that this is what this person was hired to do. So if the performance elements don't match up to the elements in the position description, then we probably have an issue, because then the employee can say, well, I've been doing these things. It has nothing to do with my position. And then we may have a situation there. So I would suggest taking a look at that PD and the performance plan and making sure that we are aligning the duties in the performance plan with what the actual position duties are supposed to be.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
You're welcome very much. Okay. Let's see. There was another question. What about employees leaving one organization for another during the performance period? Their previous organization closes them out for the period they were there, correct? So yes, if an employee is leaving, especially as we start getting towards December timeframe, again, because you have to be on that performance plan for 90 days, then it's going to be up to the losing to do a performance review before the person leaves and then close them out. And then they may be contacted by the gaining to provide some information, because sometimes the gaining will say, well, I'll take some of the stuff that they did into account as well. If they leave by December 31st, it should be the new organization's responsibility to do their performance and their appraisal. If they leave after December 31st, say like in January or February timeframe, it'll be up to the losing to do that appraisal. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Let's
Yep,
see.
thank you. I appreciate
Okay,
it.
perfect. Okay, so yeah, we'll have another one of these as we start getting closer to March, but that's a good question to ask about as well. And I may, for our next year when we do this, I'll probably put something in there about these as well. These questions are very good, so thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Mr. Price?
Do you track the PAC intern so well, or do we track it separately as a supervisor? This is my first time having a PAC intern.
Oh, okay, yes. So I've had several PAC interns. You just track them as I'm not going to track them because the CPOs don't have normally have access to them, but as supervisors you do because they fall under AFPC. And
Right.
so your copper caps and that, but yeah, you'll still need to do their performance plan. You'll still need to do their mid-year feedbacks. At the end of the year, as it gets closer to the appraisal time, you will be contacted, hopefully, by the career field team reminding you to do their appraisals. And then when it comes to if they're earning time off or monetary award, there's a different procedure for that. So
Okay.
just ask me, or Sonia Motley is your CPO EMR person at 316th.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome anytime. Okay, anyone else? Okay. So basically what's next is I'm just going to show you some of the screenshots, which you probably already know. And then in the handouts with the slides, I will also there's like a 3-page document. It kind of just goes and it's not broken up into slides. So you'll have that document as well. I'll make sure that we include that for you, okay? So basically, reminder, so the rating official, you have to have ownership of the plan, again, to make any update actions. So make sure when you're going in there, you're going to create the progress review for the person, and you're going to click that progress review, okay? The system is going to open this assessment screen. If you see the different tabs at the top, the assessments and then approvals and acknowledgements, you can go to the, you can go back or forward, but that's where the assessment is. The employee information should be in there. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to transfer it to that employee so that the employee can put anything in there for their progress review that they want. Okay. Okay. So you're going to see the progress review screen. Notice the entry number 2 was created when you went in there to do the assessment and you selected the employee. You will click the member on that page. We kind of made them blue, so it's hard to look at that, but you'll pick one of those and then you will click the update or choose an action. You can transfer it to the employee. That's how you can transfer it up at the top, or down at the bottom, if it's back to you and it's ready for you to start taking over and to put your comments in, then you're going to hit the update button under action. Okay. Okay, so when the employee has their progress review for them to make an update, it's going to have their name on it, and they will go in and update and then hit go so that they can put their information in. So the employee is going to look at it, they're going to go to the progress review tab, and they'll put update to enter the assessment screen. Okay. It opens for them so that they can enter their assessments. Then the employee will see all of their elements, whether they have 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. I like to kind of limit mine to 4. It makes it a little easier. But if there's absolutely extra things that need to be in there, by all means, performance elements should be based on the position description and the duties of their job, like we talked about. Okay, so they'll go through each radio button and it'll pull it down for them, which is on the next slide, and they will put their employee input. Okay, And of course, go to next performance elements. We all know that. This is very similar for the managers as well. When they've completed their assessment, then they're going to click the top right button for the progress review, and they're going to transfer it to you as the rating official. Okay, then it's time for you to go in. Make sure your top screen it shows plan. Make sure you're on the progress review tab. Sometimes during the annual appraisal, people will call me and they say, I can't see the annual appraisal. It's like, did you click the button up at the top? So make sure you're in the right tab, okay? We all do that too. I've done that a couple of times myself. Anyway, so in here, then pick your employee that you are going to be working on, of course, and then hit update. And then you can go in. Then here you'll see the employee's input. You will put your input there, keeping in mind what we were talking about, what goes into this progress review. And then you'll, of course, go to the next element or go to the top of the page when you've put in all of the elements. Okay. So after you do that, then you will be ready to mark it for approvals and acknowledgements. So at this part, the approval and acknowledgements, you're ready to go ahead and send it to the HRO and then send it to the employee for them to sign. Okay. So this button shows you the approvals and acknowledgements. And this is the same for the appraisals as well. So you'll hit step 1 as the rating official. If it has to go through the higher level reviewer, because we do have some that do not have to go through the higher level reviewer, or you can just click the third one to document the communication with the employee. Make sure you talk to the employee, of course, doing a verbal with the expectations so that they know. Communication date. How did you communicate with them? Was it by telephone? Was it face-to-face or other? And then put your information in there. Sample of how you communicated, and then save and transfer to the employee once you've got everything input. So here's a note too, if the employee is not available for a long period of time, then the rating official can click and save, go to step 4 to acknowledge for the employee. So the question, I have a question, and it's a good one. So although not required, you can make an employee write something up for the mid-year review, correct? Actually, you can't force them, but you can encourage them because you need something to explain. I mean, you're not sitting with your employees day after day after day, hour after hour, watching what they do, right? So I always let my employees know that I'm going to give you what I see, but if you really want me to rate you honestly, then I need your input. You need to tell me what you've been doing. I will give you an example of one time, and it's on me. I'll do it. I was doing a lot of things. I had just transferred in. I mean, there was a lot of things, and I didn't provide my input. And my new supervisor didn't have a lot of time working with me. So I really didn't get the appraisal or the mid-year review that I thought I was going to get. So ever since that time, I've been making sure that I give an input. Okay. So they don't have to do that though. There is that mindset that an employee will say, well, you should know what I do. Well, I mean, we just don't have time to do all that as a supervisor, right? So you just do the best that you can, rating on what you do know, okay? So I know I kind of went around in a circle, but you cannot make an employee put an input in there. You can ask them that, hey, I really need your input, okay?
Sorry, just to follow up on that.
Sure,
So
sure.
if
Mhm.
I guess if I send an email out saying like, hey, prepare for your mid-year reviews,
Mhm.
you can write something up. We encourage you to provide input, but it's not required. I know I just won't get any input.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I just wanted to
Mhm.
confirm that I couldn't
Yeah,
make them do
just
that.
Yeah, just send them an email and say, hey, I have transferred because when we get here in just a minute, it's going to transfer to the employee and you can put a note in there. You don't have to send them a separate email, but in that email, I would just say, hey, I highly encourage you, to provide your inputs to me. And then so that you and I are on the same page and we can communicate together on this progress review. I wouldn't even put in there that they don't have to give a review. Okay, just let them know that you're highly encouraging them to provide some kind of information for you. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Mr. Ada, you were
Yes,
next.
ma'am. So during the DPMAP training many years ago, I thought that it's supposed to be like the employee wasn't it that the employee was trained to also provide input or in the training slides.
No, they haven't.
I recall that the employee would provide, it once, if I recall correctly, and I probably have to look at the slides again, but the employee is supposed to get involved in providing input over.
Yes, because it's when you're in the interactive process, yes, because this is supposed to be a joint process between the employee and the supervisor. So either, during the discussions that you're having with them, they should be providing you input. And it may be just verbal input that they're also going to be giving you. So keep that in mind. But an employee should be giving you information, but it is not mandatory. Okay? Does that answer your question, Mr. Ada?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Mr. Phillips, yes. Good morning, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hey, yeah, this is Justin Phillips, Director of Staff for FTW. I just wanted to chime in real quick and talk about performance progress reviews versus ratings, right? So at this point in the phase, you're not rating an employee, right? So yes, you can ask for feedback. It would behoove them to provide the supervisor feedback. But if they don't provide feedback, that doesn't negate the supervisor's job, right? We're still supervisors are still responsible to go in and conduct a progress review. But the main point of a progress review, and I think Kathy, you had these slides in there earlier,
Yes.
is to sit down with the employee, go through the performance plan, make sure that the performance elements and standards are clear to the employee. The employee should have already sat down and reviewed the plan when you established it, and they can, as somebody mentioned earlier, there is some responsibility of the employee to review the plan and make sure that they do to a certain degree agree with it, right? They have to be able to see themselves in that plan. I think somebody mentioned earlier too, what if the performance plan doesn't align to the PD? Well, I mean, that's kind of the point, right? You want to make sure that you are that you can see the employee can see themselves in the plan. When it comes time for progress review, you can literally just go into the My Performance tool and simply click that you had a progress review. Again, you're not rating them. They shouldn't see a rating in the narrative write-up. You don't give a narrative or a numerical rating at this point. You're simply documenting the fact that you had a sit-down discussion with the employee. The most important part of the progress review is the part that you do before you go in the system and document it, assuming you're not having any issues with the employee. And then Kathy, I believe, provided another slide on what supervisors should, as an example of what supervisors should do if they're identifying negative trending performance. So I just wanted to chime in and mention that don't look at this as a rating per se. It just is a vector check at the halfway point because it's mandatory to give one a year. And you want to make sure that you do all that work up front so that you sit down and you're just reflecting back on the conversation that you had with the employee in the progress review. That's my take on it, at least, and that's how I've done it, and that's how it's been demonstrated to me in the past. Thanks. Oh,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input. Exactly. Okay. Any other questions for right now? I'll keep going. Okay. All right. In the case that the PD is old, should the elements align to the PD or the current tasks that the employee is doing? Again, it's going to be looking at that PD to making sure that the PD is actually showing what the position is supposed to be doing. If the performance plan is something like off the wall, like let's say this is a budget position, but you're having them do HR stuff in the performance plan, then there's a disconnect. We don't want that. You want in your performance plan what they're actually doing. Are they doing whatever the budget is? Not putting things in there like, oh, as the budget, you have to create RPAs for our vacant positions. Well, that doesn't work. So in that case, I would just review the PD and the performance plan with the employee. The two of you sit down and take a look and say, is this exactly what we need to be doing? Okay, is this exactly what your position was meant for? Is that what your position is needed to do the mission, to accomplish the mission? Okay. Okay.
Piggybacking on that, if
Mhm.
is it standard that if going back to that detailed situation,
Mhm.
that you would retain bullets about the job you were hired for, even though you're not performing any of those? Or do you make sure the PD, the new description, is only what you are doing on the detail? I mean, I can see the arguments for both. I'm just curious, what's the official answer?
Yeah. I've always been told this official answer is when you are taking somebody from this position and you're detailing them to another position, and they are going to be responsible for doing those duties in that detailed position. This one stays back because they're not performing those duties, but a new plan in what they're doing on that detail needs to be created. Now, if it's a 30-day detail, no. If it's up to 120-day detail, then yes, they should be on a temporary plan to include those duties that they're doing on that detail. And then once the detail ends, they go back to their original plan then. And then their detail time is taken into account during that rating period. Did they do a good job while they were on that detail? Then those can be included into the performance plan. And that could be, or the progress review, that could be just different notes in the different areas, or just have little notes in there that may pertain to what the detail was. I always just make sure I put notes in there. Maybe it's a little separate area that was detailed. And then this is what the person did during the detail. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just interesting
Okay.
to try to visually, without paper anymore, that all being digital, to see two
Yeah.
simultaneous plans going on,
Right.
and when
Right.
you invoke one and when you invoke the other and all that. But
True,
okay.
true. Yeah. So if the detail is less than 60 days, because then, you have to be on the performance plan for 90 days, then as a supervisor, I would just take it into account that we were having them do these other duties and include it in their plan. So it's going to vary on what the length of the detail is, understood? So
Yep.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
All right.
So
Thank
I
you.
would just, as a supervisor, I want to look out what's best for my employee. So if we happen to detail somebody to another position, no matter what the time period is, I'm going to make sure that my employee is going to get credit for doing that detail somewhere in their progress review or in their performance plan. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So
Somebody
Ms.
put
Hill,
us on hold there. Somebody put us on hold. Okay. All right. Okay, moving to the next.
can I piggyback on Ms. Gregan's comment?
Sure.
So if it's less than 90 days, then we can just try to pick an element that has space in it to put a note there that they did this on a detail.
Sure, you can. You can also just keep it separately in their 971 and just document it that way. Doesn't necessarily have to be on the progress review, but I would always give credit to my employee for being detailed and doing a good job, right? So you can put it in the progress review, doesn't necessarily have to be in the progress review as long as you've got it documented somewhere. Okay,
Thank you.
of course. Okay. Okay, so we'll just get back on this real quick. This is of course, we know the employee is going to review it. They're going to have ownership and they're going to go the approvals and approve that and acknowledge with the date. Okay, and then the employee is going to acknowledge, and then the supervisor is going to see that they can view the history, they can print the progress review, whatever they need to do on that. Okay. And then this is where it shows everything is complete and updated. Okay, so plan was approved, progress review is completed, and that means it's all the way completed, and that's what you want it to read as we get to the end, okay? All right. This is if the rating official has to acknowledge for the employee, then they will put the information in there, and then instead of transferring it to the employee, they'll just save it and go to step 4. And they will acknowledge the start, click the start, and put the acknowledgement in there. And then hit save. Make sure you do the method, and then step 4 will show completed. Okay. Again, I'll give you a little sheet on this too, so that you'll have that as well. Okay. Okay. All right. Any questions? Sorry, let me sorry. Do my phone here. Anyway, any other questions that I can help answer today? Okay.
I have a question. Let's see one more time. So this is just a midterm, but let's say I want to do another feedback, since this one was closed out, and I want to start another, an extra feedback.
Yeah.
Do I generate a new one, or we're piggybacking off of the, how do we turn it back? How do we do it?
Yeah, you just piggyback off of that. Again, you could just document it in the 971 that you had another discussion. You don't have to go in and do multiple progress reviews. Okay. So we all know as supervisors, we got to document. Sometimes you're going to have like a hard copy 971 with notes in there, and sometimes it's going to be electronic. So, okay.
Copy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay. So this is a good question. So if the employee does not agree with the plan and refuses to acknowledge, resulting in the plan not being completed until the August timeframe, I understand where you're coming from, is the feedback date based off of when the discussions began on the plan? Okay. So this is kind of a tough one because we know the plan's supposed to be done by 30 April, and sometimes we just get behind the power curve, right? So if the employee does not agree on the initial performance plan, you as the supervisor can go in and say, well, this is your performance plan, and sign off and put that the employee refused to acknowledge and declined the performance plan. Because as a supervisor, we have the best interests at heart. I mean, we need to try to resolve it as much as possible. But if the employee is just not ever going to approve it, then as a supervisor, you need to just say, this is your plan. This is what you're going to be rated on, and you need to perform these duties. So again, you can go in there and acknowledge for the employee saying that they refuse to sign it. Okay. Then the feedback. So if the plan doesn't get approved until August timeframe, the employee still needs to be on that plan 90 days before you can give a progress review. So you're going to have a delayed progress review because the plan had not been approved. And then, until the plan's approved, you can't rate them on that 90 days. Okay. So your plan is going to be delayed August till the end of November. Okay. Or even into January, depending on the date. You have to have that 90 days. Okay, so your progress review will be out. Okay, so you may get a little thing from CPO saying, hey, you were supposed to do your progress review. They've been on board since April. That's when you just say that we weren't on an approved plan and the progress review will be done in November or December timeframe. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Got it. Okay. So if we initiate a new employee plan 1 October, we would not do a progress review, correct? Okay, so if they were on a plan and you just made changes, you can do the progress review on the last plan. But if you have a new employee and they didn't start till 1 October, then you will not give them, you make sure that they're on a performance plan and it's signed and it's 90 days from the date that it was signed that you give them the progress review, okay? Yeah, you wouldn't do a progress review because you're just putting them on the plan, okay? Yes, Mr. Phillips.
Hey, Kathy, thanks.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, or maybe, I'll look into it myself, but
Mhm.
I don't know that there is anything written down that says you must be on a plan for 90 days before you provide a progress review. I definitely agree and know that you must be on a plan for 90 days before you can be rated against that plan for an actual end of year rating.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you have to extend the rating period into the next year. And I've looked into this question in previous positions as well, and I have not seen anywhere where it says you must be on a plan for 90 days to receive a progress review. And one of the things is if you have an employee who was trending downward towards the end of last year, you rated them
Mhm.
perhaps all threes. This year, you may want to, within the first 30 days, provide a progress review to level the bubble. So I would just look into that, and make sure that we can't give a progress review earlier than 90 days. Over.
Well, we can, I'm sorry.
There's
Because
no
remember,
system
you can give,
limitation that would
no,
prevent
there's
you.
no
I'll put it
limitations
that
on the
way.
amount of progress reviews you could give. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking rating, but no, progress review you can give after 30 days, after 10 days, after whatever, because you're going to be monitoring the progress. So I apologize on that. I was thinking the scoring, but no, progress reviews you can give them multiple progress reviews at any time. Okay. Sorry, I started thinking about the appraisal. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah. No, thank you for the clarification. You're right. I want to make sure I'm giving the right information here. So yeah. And then what if they moved from a different section as a promotion? I kind of talked about that. Yeah, ask me about that. I'm gonna need some specifics because if they left and they left for a promotion and they're not coming back, you just close out that employee. But if they're temporary promoted and then they're coming back, you keep it open. And that's when you'll have that discussion, just like a detail on how good they did when they were temp promoted or whatever. So hopefully, Ms. Wyan, that answered your question there. But if not, contact me and I'll help with an answer on that. Okay. Okay, so no limit on progress reviews. The one in the system, the other progress reviews can be documented. Make sure as a supervisor, you're keeping an employee 971 folder to have all their information in there when you need to take notes. And of course, that comes into play if you have somebody that is not performing. You're going to have to have that documentation before you talk to EMR, and before they can do any type of action. So just keep that in mind. I think as supervisors, a majority of us already know that, but just always good to remind everybody. Okay. All right. Is there any other questions?
Ms. Hill, I don't know if this pertains to this forum here. If not, then we can talk offline. But if the PD, if the employee is doing tasks that doesn't fill up the scope of the PD, can the PD be revised, or does it have to have like a certain significant amount of change to the duties and responsibilities to revise a PD? Over.
So I would suggest in that case, let's talk about that because the performance plan for the employee should match what the mission and what the PD, what the position's intended for, right? So if they're doing other duties that are not in the PD, then there's an issue with the position, because then is that the right position? Is that actually what you need that person to be doing? So let's talk offline. I'm in the office today for a little bit longer, but anyway, otherwise you and I can talk offline on that, because I'd like to see the PD and the progress review, and you need to tell me, is this the duties here, or are these the duties here? And remember, when you're looking at a PD, as a supervisor, if you can always go to my FSS and go to the SCPD library and look up that series and grade and see if there's an SCPD for your position. And then we can look at if that's what the duties need to be. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey Kathy, one last thing, it's Justin, on that
Yeah.
note.
Mhm.
Just keep in mind, everybody, that as supervisors, part of your responsibility is to review your employees' performance plans annually. And technically, they should be made current every 2 years. So you shouldn't have performance PDs that don't match what the employee should be doing. So you want to make sure you bring those current. Kathy said the right thing. Go to the SCPD library, see if there's a PD out there that matches. Yes, that it happens quite often where you have old PDs that employees are still on. But I can tell you, AFPC is at least from my experience, was really holding up actions if the PD wasn't signed by the supervisor within the past 2 years. They might have provided relief on that recently, but at least back a year or so ago, they were doing that. And the other thing is you certainly can require employees to do other duties as assigned, right? You don't have to have every single thing in the PD linked back to the PD that you ask your employees to do. But if everything you're asking your employee to do is not even resembled in the PD, then you got an issue. Or if a large preponderance of what you're asking them to do. Over.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. If you've got the budget PD and they're doing HR duties now, or they're doing CE, LRS, whatever, they have to keep it within the scope of what their position is actually built for. Okay.
Mr. Phillips, could you, is there such a thing as a scrub that goes on? Like, is somebody assigned to agencies to check and see the status of that? Like, how we used to have ORIs, or different inspections. Is that a thing anymore, or no? It's just incumbent on people to do it, but there's no oversight to make sure it's actually happening? Over.
Yes, there is. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Phillips. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not an HR professional per se, although I've filled in as one for a few years.
What?
But
You're not?
What I would say is each office, each organization should review their PDs, right? I mean, it's not necessarily required on the organization, but as a supervisor, you're required to do it. And whether or not you know that or not is a little different, right? Because there's a lot of stuff out there. I probably have 40, 50 different AFIs, DOTIs, et cetera, linked on a folder on my desktop just for my supervisory duties. But what I'll say is it's kind of on AFPC. So if AFPC is overworked, overtasked, and they don't hold agencies accountable or organizations accountable, then they'll slip through. And that's how you get these PDs that are 10 years old. That are wet ink signed and go back to positions that don't even resemble what you have now. But like I said, a few years ago, they really turned around on that and making it really, really hard to even fill that position. Technically, what they want you to do is review those PDs before you attempt to fill them, so that you don't lose any valuable work time. So that would be why you do it annually. That makes sense. But I don't know that there's any requirement that a directorate or a headquarters does it on an annual basis.
So I could tell you that the Air Force Audit Agency does do inspections periodically. They did do an inspection on AFDW a couple years ago, and they wanted to make sure that we as HR were reminding supervisors to go to that SCPD library and to make sure that you are meeting with your employee at least annually to ensure that that PD or SCPD or CPD was actually what the duties are of the position. Now, if you are in touch with your career field team at AFPC, they usually will push out information on new SCPDs that they're building because they're continuously building them. So I would always go out and check that SCPD library at least once a year just to see if there's been any updates in any of the PDs. From an HR perspective, back in December, I was looking at the positions that I had and come to find out that one of my positions, what I have 2 people on, now has an SCPD. So I went ahead and submitted it from their old CPDs to their SCPDs. So you just need to keep checking that SCPD library. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, well, I hope you found this informative. I'm always available if you need any questions answered or if you have anything else that you need to discuss. Please let me know. Again, we recorded this session for everyone, so if you want to go back and relook at